When you love someone with avoidant attachment style, the first thing you have to understand is that their emotional distance is not a verdict on your worth. It's not a reflection of your value, your desirability, or your capacity to love. It's a reflection of their internal wiring, often shaped by early experiences that taught them closeness can feel like danger. And if you forget this, if you take their withdrawal personally, you will get caught in a relentless loop of trying to earn their affection, chasing their approval like it's oxygen. That's how you lose yourself. So the very first step is to build a foundation of emotional independence so solid that their distance can't shake it. Most people think love means merging, fusing, becoming one with the other person. But true love doesn't erase you, it expands you. It's not about dissolving into someone else's life. It's about bringing your whole self into connection. When you fall for an avoidant, this becomes even more essential because they will, at times, retreat into their inner world. If you don't have your own inner world to stand on, that space will feel like rejection. But when you're anchored in your own identity, you can experience their distance without collapsing into fear. You can let them drift for a moment without losing your center. Anchoring yourself starts with building a strong internal narrative, one where your value is not dependent on how anyone treats you in a given moment. That means getting brutally honest with yourself about where your self-worth currently comes from. If it's tied too tightly to external validation, you'll always be at the mercy of other people's moods. Instead, start investing in the parts of your life that reflect who you are, not who someone else says you are. Your goals, your passions, your friendships, your purpose, these are the roots that keep you grounded. When you know what you stand for, when you're proud of the life you're building, their emotional fluctuations won't pull you under. There's a psychological shift that happens when you stop needing someone's affection to feel whole. You go from grasping to giving. Instead of approaching the relationship with anxiety, will they leave? Do they care? You approach it with curiosity and abundance. You're not trying to get love, you're bringing love. That subtle shift changes everything. The avoidant feels less pressure, less threat of engulfment, and ironically, that often draws them closer. But even if it doesn't, you're still whole. You don't crumble if they can't meet you emotionally because you're not standing on them to hold yourself up. This is not detachment in the cold sense. It's not shutting down or pretending you don't care. It's emotional sovereignty. It's the quiet confidence of knowing you can love someone deeply without giving them the keys to your self-esteem. That's what makes your love powerful, because it's chosen, not desperate. You're not clinging to them to avoid loneliness. You're standing beside them as an equal, as someone who could walk away if needed but chooses to stay because it aligns with your values, not because it fills a void. And here's the truth. The most magnetic energy in any relationship is someone who doesn't need the other person to breathe. It's paradoxical, but when you no longer need their closeness to validate your existence, you actually create the space where real closeness can finally happen. Love from a place of fullness, not fear. And you'll never lose yourself again. One of the hardest truths to accept when you love someone with avoidant attachment style is that the usual strategies for creating closeness often backfire. We're conditioned to believe that love grows through intensity, more talking, more togetherness, more emotional disclosure. But for someone wired to equate closeness with danger, intensity can feel like pressure. It doesn't matter how pure your intentions are. If your energy comes across as pursuit, they'll experience it as threat. And threat triggers their instinct to withdraw. That's why you can pour your heart out to them and be met with silence. Not because they don't care, but because the pressure overloads their system. So if you want to connect, you have to redefine what connection even means. Instead of chasing big dramatic moments, start building a slow and steady emotional rhythm that respects their need for space. Think of it like creating an atmosphere instead of demanding an outcome. When you stop trying to get something from them, more affection, more reassurance, more availability, you give them room to breathe. Paradoxically, that breathing room often becomes the very thing that makes them feel safe enough to step closer. Connection with an avoidant isn't about grand gestures, it's about consistency without intrusion. That might mean short, light conversations rather than deep emotional excavations every time you talk. It might mean sharing an experience side by side, like watching a movie, going for a walk, cooking together, without pressuring them to verbalize every feeling. These low-stakes interactions build trust because they don't threaten their autonomy. Over time, each moment becomes another brick in a bridge, and that bridge matters far more than any single passionate breakthrough. This requires shifting your energy from urgency to presence. Urgency says, I need this closeness right now or I can't feel okay. Presence says, I'm here, and I'm okay whether you move closer or not. That difference is palpable. An avoidant nervous system is finely tuned to pick up on emotional demands. When they sense you're okay without their constant reassurance, the tension eases. They stop feeling like they have to defend their independence, and that's when they naturally start leaning in. Not because you forced it, but because the environment feels safe. And here's something powerful to remember: safety doesn't come from words alone, it comes from energy. You can say, I don't want to pressure you, while your tone, your posture, your nervous system screams pressure. Or you can say nothing at all but embody calm confidence and they'll feel it. Humans are deeply attuned to emotional signals beneath the surface. If you regulate yourself, slow your breathing, ground your body, relax your need for control, they will pick up on that. It's not manipulation, it's leadership. You're showing their nervous system that closeness doesn't mean captivity. Ultimately, your goal is not to convince them to open up, it's to create a relational space where opening up feels safe. That's a subtle but critical distinction. You're not trying to pry them open. You're simply removing the sense of threat so they can choose to open on their own terms. And when they do, it won't be because you demanded it. It will be because you embodied something rare: love without pressure, warmth without fear, presence without need. When you love someone with avoidant attachment style, it's easy to slide into a dangerous pattern without realizing it. You start softening your voice to avoid triggering them. You stop asking for clarity because you don't want to seem needy. You excuse the silent treatments, the disappearing acts, the way they close off when things get real. And little by little, you begin abandoning yourself in the name of keeping the peace. But here's the truth: love without boundaries is not love. It's erasure. If you want to sustain a connection without losing yourself, you must hold the line on who you are, what you need, and what you will not tolerate. Boundaries are not walls. They are not ultimatums. They are the framework that lets love grow without consuming you. Think of them as the structure that protects the relationship from chaos. When you don't have clear boundaries, you start negotiating with your own self-worth. You tell yourself they just need more time while quietly betraying your own emotional needs. But when you stand firm on your values, when you can say, I love you, and I also need honesty, consistency, and basic respect, you're no longer at the mercy of their emotional storms. You stop trying to control them and start controlling the only thing you truly can: yourself. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to see boundaries not as something you enforce on the other person, but as commitments you make to yourself. A boundary isn't, you can't ignore me for days. It's, if you ignore me for days, I will choose not to engage until we can communicate in a healthy way. See the difference? One is an attempt to control them. The other is an act of self-respect. You are not trying to change their behavior. You're deciding how you will respond to it. That keeps your dignity intact even when their patterns resurface. And here's something important: an avoidant partner might initially resist your boundaries. They might accuse you of being cold, demanding, or too sensitive. That's because boundaries disrupt the emotional equilibrium they've grown comfortable with. But if you hold steady, not defensive, not aggressive, just unwavering, they will eventually recognize that your boundaries make the relationship safer, not more threatening. Your clarity removes the guesswork. It teaches them where they end and where you begin. That distinction is crucial because avoidants often fear relationships will swallow their identity. When they see you protecting your identity, it paradoxically reassures them that they won't lose theirs either. There's also a deep psychological truth here: people respect what you respect. If you respect yourself enough to set standards, they are more likely to rise to meet you. If you continually lower the bar, they will keep stepping over it. Boundaries are how you teach others how to love you. They are not obstacles to love. They are the container that allows real intimacy to form, because intimacy cannot exist without mutual respect. And remember, holding your boundaries isn't about proving your strength to them. It's about proving your loyalty to yourself. Because if you abandon yourself to keep someone else, you've already lost more than they could ever take from you. Protect your edges and you protect your essence. And that's the part of you worth loving in the first place. Loving someone with avoidant attachment style demands that you master one of the most difficult emotional disciplines of all: staying grounded in reality while holding space for possibility. Because here's the paradox: you can't change them, yet your love can influence them. But that influence only works if it comes from acceptance, not resistance. The moment your love becomes a campaign to fix them, you've lost the essence of connection. They will feel it. Avoidants are hypersensitive to emotional agendas, and when they sense you're trying to mold them, they retreat further. That's why your power doesn't come from forcing transformation. It comes from modeling it. Acceptance is not resignation. It doesn't mean tolerating neglect or shrinking your needs to fit their comfort zone. It means seeing them clearly, acknowledging the protective armor they've built without making it your mission to rip it off. It means loving them as they are today, not just as the version you hope they'll become. Ironically, that's what creates the safety that makes transformation possible. Because when someone feels fully accepted, they no longer have to defend their walls. And only when the walls stop being necessary do they begin to lower them on their own. This is where your own inner strength becomes crucial. To truly love an avoidant without losing yourself, you must become emotionally self-sufficient enough to give love without strings. That doesn't mean loving them passively or indefinitely if they don't grow. It means giving love as a choice, not as leverage. There's a difference between offering connection and demanding change. The former invites closeness, the latter triggers resistance. If they do evolve, it will be because they choose to, not because you pressured them into it. And if they don't, your self-worth remains intact because it was never riding on their transformation in the first place. One of the most liberating shifts you can make is to release the illusion of control. So many people stay locked in painful dynamics because they secretly believe, if I just love them hard enough, they'll heal. That belief keeps you on an emotional treadmill, running harder, giving more, yet never getting closer. When you finally step off that treadmill, something powerful happens. You reclaim your energy. You stop trying to pull them toward intimacy and start focusing on embodying intimacy yourself. You live your values, you speak your truth calmly, you love them, but you no longer chase them. And paradoxically, that's often when they start moving closer, because they no longer feel your love as pressure. They feel it as presence. Your calm confidence becomes an anchor they can approach at their own pace. And even if they never do, you are free, because your life isn't on pause waiting for them to catch up. Loving an avoidant while staying whole means holding this paradox. You accept who they are, and you remain deeply loyal to who you are. You stop measuring the success of the relationship by how much they change, and start measuring it by how fully you stay aligned with your own truth. If they grow, beautiful. If they don't, you walk away with your wholeness intact. That's real love, not the kind that consumes you, but the kind that leaves you standing taller.